G'day, friends and fans. Welcome to Dave Talks Stuff. I think you've heard it. I know you've heard it. Happy wife, happy life. It's a fallacy. It's a flawed psychological manipulation. It's a belief that a marriage is solely based on you succeeding by making your wife happy at your psychological, physical health. That her emotional state is based solely on you making her happy. It is often a cliche or a shortcut to conflict avoidance. It is often cheap pop psychology flaunted by marriage counselors. However, real relationship experts, real marriage experts, and psychologists widely reject the mantra. You see, Harvard did a study for people who lived to be 80 and over. Those whose lives averaged 88 had a happy life. They didn't have a happy wife. They had a happy life. Men and women who led a happy life had deep and meaningful relationships, did not suffer as much as those who engaged in conflict. Now, I'm off to a bad start in life, having psychological disorders. My health, I am not, sadly to say, I am not in good health. My life is not sustainable. However, I'm not a simp, and simps suffer the worst. See, happy wife, happy life is unsustainable. It creates an absurd, imbalanced relationship where you are the provider to a codependent who knows that at any moment she could snap her fingers, knowing that relationship is hers to command. It's a pitfall created by jewelry stores, no doubt. There's definitely someone who owned a jewelry store who said it, because it's the most common place I see it. In fact, I snapped once, not once, not twice, when I saw it. And I know why I snapped. Because some little asshole would pinch me on the bottom and say, "There you go get me something." Yeah. Eventually wouldn't. No, I'm telling you, married life is full of pitfalls, but it is not made better by such slogans, sayings, and the people who promote it. And it takes its toll on your physical and mental health, which is why so many men are walking away. And before you all walk away, the show ain't over yet. And a word to remind you that this channel is sponsored by you, the viewing audience. For $1 a month, you can support me on Future Fantasy, my science fiction RPG Patreon has grown in sort and has become a way just to support the channel. This is my little side hobby, my little paradise, and it's becoming more and more expensive for me to maintain my hobby. The latest piece of artwork, the lava dragon serpent spirit. This and other beautiful works of art. Don't come cheap. Thank you to all those who support the channel, and hopefully more of you will join, making it easier on me, and it does. I put everything back into the channel. Well, the pitfalls created by Happy Wife, Happy Life are many. See, it creates a mindset that suppresses authentic intimacy. When you train your partner to realize that you are going to buy her regular gifts, well, if you capitulate to maintain immediate peace, they no longer have boundaries. They no longer have to express feelings. And you turn their own thoughts from mutual benefit into her benefit, and only her benefit. See, gentlemen, simps created women, modern women, for the last 300 years, from the age of romanticism. Simple-minded pussy hounds have pandered to women, talking about sticking their tongues in their holes or their asses or anything to pander to the forbidden pleasures, as it were. But then it would be gifts. They turned dating into gift giving. They turned marriage into gift giving. They created the myth of the diamond wedding, and the diamond wedding anniversary, And ultimately, what happens? It leads to long-term psychological issues. It's an unhealthy process where individuals can no longer coexist without one of them becoming toxic, where one of them cannot have a viewpoint, and that the only conflict resolution is to engage in compliance. This, my friend, is liberal terrorism. Believe it or not, it creates resentment and burnout. You don't understand. Eventually, simping, well, the emotional damage takes its toll. Now, I'm not saying I was a simp. I'm just saying my relationship ended very quickly because I wasn't. But still, consistently operating under the assumption that one person's needs are secondary causes long-term emotional exhaustion and damage to that person. They don't feel valued. They feel like a wallet. The appeaser becomes emotionally withdrawn. And eventually, they're nothing more than a beaten dog. They're nothing but a servant. And they are treated like that, not just by the dominatrix, but her friends, her family. I have seen in the Chinese community so many broken men, and it used to be a cliche in the Chinese community. You want to end your life, get married. But it's spread. Western women, green and envy, right? their favorite pastimes. The idea of independence has somehow equated them to wealth and privilege. Why? Because they've seen it. And I have seen it. And if I can see it, you've all seen it. So I'm probably not the smartest man in the room at most of the time. But I'm not the dumbest. Okay? I did well in maths. I did well in communications. And I did well in chemistry. But in other areas, I did not. I was only average. I was only average in most of my subjects. But the worst thing is, women become infants. See, when the relationship is no longer intimate, women retreat psychologically into their shell. They base their relationship on transaction and care. They become the spoilt child. They become even more emotional fragile, more volatile, and often become needing to be placated like a child. And thus, as a child or child in this state, the thought of sex and sexual contact actually makes them feel revolted and broken and used and confused like a child because they have disconnected from reproduction. And you see it around the world. I don't have all the answers, but women need discipline. And we look at places where there's traditional relationships and we don't see these problems. But unfortunately, the unhealthy attitude has spread to most of the world now. And it's by design. It is population control. They want to cull the population. The WEF has made it clear. Switzerland wants to bring in a mandatory population cap. Wonder how they're going to enforce that. It's not going to be nice, is it? Now, last but not least, placating women ignores and creates mental health issues. Why is she unhappy? Who cares, right? All you have to do is ram a handbag in her mouth. But what happens when the handbags, the shoes, the sex toys, the lingerie, the peanut butter, none of them please her anymore? She's 35, so you trade her in, right? But now you've just unleashed a psychologically broken and damaged infantile adult onto the world who's just going to take her anger and frustration out on the rest of us. And that's exactly what's been happening for the last 30-something years. I'm not saying all, but almost every divorced woman is a psychological wreck, taking her anger out on the world. I'm not saying all of them, but a vast majority of women are depressed, are suffering from what clinically lonely. They have become psychologically dependent on others for their happiness. And they have equated this happiness to getting their own way, getting free healthcare, free housing. Nothing is satisfying them. If someone has perfectionism, it's often linked to chronic anxiety, clinical depression, and other disorders. And no amount of gifts will resolve the root issue. Now, even psychologists agree getting to the core of the issue is only half the battle. The other half is trying to get them to correct their behavior. And I'm telling you, most are going to fail. You're going to end up with someone with abandonment issues, but will have ultimately abandon every man in her life. She will want children and go and have lots of children with the worst men in the world because she thinks that they will produce the children with the strongest survival traits. I know, because they think that, and this thinking comes from seeing others do it, where they get their little nasty brats, get their claws into them, teach him to be a mummy's boy, and it's not an African American thing. I've seen it in Asian communities too. I've seen it may be prevalent in African American communities, but there are many communities where, look at my boy, he's such a good little boy. He does everything for his mummy. I've seen it. It goes through cycles everywhere. Human behavior, the worst of it, often stands out in minority communities in the West, but you see broken communities across the world now. And no amount of appeasement is going to resolve this problem. It takes a shift. It takes people to put their foot down and say no. You have to put your relationship on the line and say no. You have to be able to say no to relationships. If they are going, if every relationship is going to be based on you being the provider with nothing in return, right? If you can't have a healthy codependency where where there's clear lines of boundaries, where the money that goes into the household expenses is it. No savings, no selling of assets, no dividing of assets, no money from other sources to. And if there aren't clear relationship goals from the beginning, and the moment those goals aren't met, you are not walking away. Yes. Yeah, recently there was a rumor about, changing social trends and how those with so-called modern thinking, Harvard, didn't believe the results. They weren't going to publish the results. Those who led traditional lifestyles lived longer. Less dementia. Not no dementia, but less dementia. Less chronic illness. Where they were probably many other issues at play, but probably traditional diets as well. Probably didn't eat out as much. Probably a whole bunch of things. But it starts with the mindset that my happiness is my happiness, and that your happiness is your happiness. You're going to go in and out of happiness. I'm going to go in and out of happiness. But the difference is no one is planning an exit. No one is planning how to take you to court and take half your stuff. No one's sitting there going, well, when he dies, I'm going to go on a world cruise with 20-year-old boys and, or they got Tyrone on the back burner. Or heck, none of them have, and this is what's happened is over the last century, the amount of happiness in the world has decreased. And it has been fueled by the greed of, I'm not saying entirely, but there are probably well-meaning people. But I'm saying these industries are fueled by greed and not need. Cut flowers, right? The idea that you have to bring a rose to a date just to get started, right? These are all things. No. It starts with the simple things and then goes on. And it's predominantly jewelry stores, but the fashion industry, doll up, the makeup industry, as women exposing themselves more and more to toxic chemicals, which are now going to probably be the next tobacco industry lawsuit. But it also has you going to expensive places that, and collectively, by monetizing relationships, instead of being a couple, you now have lots of single men and single women, and you have women running around clucking, oh, we don't need no man. And yet, used to be a cope and sieve by 35-year-old women. And it's still probably the majority of people running around. It's cope and sieve. It's the I don't need no man, and then at 40, she's a single mother with Tyrone, But there's no amount of appeasement. And that's the point. There's nothing that you can do, right? We're waiting for the next shoe to drop. What do women want next? We're hearing about healthcare, housing, food. What's next? Paying for groceries. Yeah, I've heard that. Paying for housing. And it's going to be utilities, folks. Once they got their free house, once they got their free food, once they get their free healthcare, they're going to come for you to pay their utility bills. They are still massively determined to turn men into slaves. And if you don't know the true history of the world, once upon a time, the ancient Greeks recorded a thing called the Amazon Revolt. That is where men stood up to women, and the rest is history. Women became. For the rest of that last 6,500 years, women have complained about being oppressed. Yeah. Oppressed because we won't give them gifts. Oppressed because we won't give them a luxury. Oppressed. Where, if you actually go back to the medieval, we don't know how accurate some of the records are. Well, there's enough stories around to actually say that while the lords and ladies lived in fear of being murdered by each other, most of the time the peasants were quite happy and actually quite left alone. Often lords and ladies would hide in their castles staring out the window, worried about peasant revolts. all the peasants are happy today. We get to live another day, I guess. But we're hungry. Charles, send for the guards. Go collect the taxes. Yeah. A bit easy on them, you know. Yeah. So give what you can, will you? But yeah, you do see it, right? I think we were much better off and much happier when our leaders feared that we could kick them out. But instead, now they rigged the system. And if you don't know how they rigged the system, it's called the bureaucracy and the unions, working hand in glove with the media corporations. It's not, well, the tech lords, they're just taking economic advantage, but really it's large, bulky organisations. Who counts the votes? Predominantly unions, the bureaucracy. It's and it all comes back to happy wife, happy life. The unions, they pander to the female. Look at the teachers, especially teachers union, right? Because all they want is more members. They don't. No one really cares when you have a big organisation, but when you have a medium organisation, that's when you tend to get the most desperate because you can sniff that easy life, you know. It's like streamers. When streamers are medium to small, sure, we're desperate. We ask for your support. A lot give up, and yeah, I can understand why the vast majority of people just give up because we are not well received half the time. Okay, people do worry that they're going to say or do something that's going to turn them into content. It does. You look at some of your big streamers, and they're total introverts who can sit there hours per day, and the only friends they have, and they're watching each other, responding to each other in real time. That's no way to live. So this is, you know, not, don't think, the majority are happy, good hearted, light-hearted people. No, they're all spoilt by the easy life they've had, and it does. If I'm not saying, hey, take away all my struggles, I'm just asking for a bit of support, and I'm always offering something in return. So before I go, Empire Valves, that's one word, empirevalves.myshopify.com. Where has your mug taken you? Mine will take you to a place of wonder and fantasy with Empire Valves. That's one word. However, the Empire Valves is not just the name of my shop, it's the name of my book series. There's the main character, Cade. Starts with the boyhood of Cade. Follow his journey through the games and manipulation that propels him from grandson of the emperor to princeling to becoming the emperor and navigating life, learning the true secrets behind power and privilege. Also, he's demonically possessed. And along the way, maybe you'll enjoy yourself. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Costs you nothing. And it does support the channel. Tells the algorithm that I've made content that other people may like. I know it sounds silly, but that's how YouTube works. You don't like the content, you put it thumbs down. That's why people do it. People come, they get jealous, they just hit the down button straight away and leave. It's easier to get people not to like you. It's harder to get a like on YouTube than it is a dislike. So, while I still keep the original Ko-Fi from, Patreon is one way. Most people buy my books, but I've had a merch sale. I'm hoping for more. See you in the next video, and bye for now.